on seminar series. Uh, the talk is pretty much the same that I gave in the IIT Bombay this January, just before lockdown. So I apologize to some of you, Asmita Di. I mean, this is the pretty much same talk. Okay, so today I plan to give a brief introduction to what we call the small x limit of TMD PDF. I shall discuss the procedure to move to the small x limit, how to estimate the PDF in the framework of what we call the color glass condensate effective field theory, and how to evolve them, the operator, how to evolve those operator in the small x using a small x evolution equation. So in the end, I shall briefly cite some of our recent work in this broad area that we have performed with my students and collaborators. Okay, so let me remove this. So in the study of high energy scattering of a projectile pattern and target nucleus, there are basically two avenues to introduce the small x evolution in the theory. It can be either introduced via the wave function of the projectile, that is the pattern, or in the wave function of the target nucleus. So, and that gives the two avenue to move to the small x domain. Or as far as formalism is concerned, there is this two, not complementary, equivalent approach. So, this Baletsky-Kolchikov equation, Muller dipole model, this is one avenue, and that introduced the small x evolution in the projectile. And this is the another avenue where we have this Zimok evolution, color glass condensate, etc. And this would incorporate the small evolution in the nucleus or target. So in this talk, I shall review mostly the CGC approach or color glass condensate approach. Part of the reason is that it is closely related to the heavy ion collision physics, and also because it readily gives a framework to estimate multi-point Wilson line correlators, which are required to calculate the TMDs in the small x. So in next few slides, I shall briefly give a overview of color glass condensate framework. So before I begin, just a quick comment that in the high energy nucleus-nucleus collision, color glass condensate is the state of the two colliding nuclei just before the collision. And the state of the and the plasma is the state of the nuclear matter just after the collision. So this is the collision point. CGC is the state of nucleus just before collision, and plasma is just after collision. So as far as high energy physics is concerned, if we look back, we see that there are a lot of progress already been done, both in the experimental phenomenological front. Uh, by now we have wealth of data in experiment. For phenomenological front, the prediction and post-predictions now almost reach to a precision for a wide range of observables related to heavy ion collisions. However, the progress in deriving the collision dynamics right from the QCD Lagrangian, what we call the first principle approach, is not at par with the progress of the experiment or phenomenology front. One of the reason is that it is a hard problem. For example, if we take this questions, open problems, why thermalization is so rapid, why hydrodynamics is successful in this context, heavy ion collision context, how to get the initial conditions. So these are the open problems or unsettled problems that are either open or not been settled yet. And the theory that can address those problems from the first principle ought to be a field theory of gluon field. And this color glass condensate or CGC theory is one step towards that. but you know we just have two colliding nucleus. Then how to build a field theory of this kind of event? At least to start with, this is not a problem, because after all, this nucleus is a collection of partons, um, and they are basically essentially colored charge centers. And the very first thing that we can do is to model the color charge density and the color charge current in the nucleus. Once we model the color charge density and color charge current in the nucleus, then we can think of to moving to color fields, and then we can start developing a field theory. So that is the basic scheme. Now, the very basis of color glass condensate framework is the fact that the first partons of the hadron or nucleus, they suffer what we call the Lorentz time dilation. So therefore, they do not evolve in time during the short duration of collision. Now they can thus be considered as a time independent object. In light cone coordinate system, light cone perturbation theory, this plus component taken to be the plays the role of time. So this color charge density are independent of plus component. They are time independent, and that gives a lot of simplification to the color current. This color current is having the only the longitudinal components. So that is the only component that survives, and this simplification makes the things rather easy. uh, Now once we have, so this is the modeling scheme. Once we have have modeled the color charge density and color charge current, now how to move to the color field? Now that is being done by the Young-Mills equation. uh, Now it turns out that in Lorentz gauge, this equation is analytically solvable, and it appears there's only the scalar component of the field that survive. Plus component of the field, that is a scalar color potential, survives in this particular gauge, and it directly connected with the color charge density. So, and this is very important because it tells that color charged density, if we have a ensemble of target color charge density, then that is essentially the that is essentially getting the ensemble for target color field. So once we have rho, we have the colored fields generated by the nucleus. All right, so how to specify the ensemble of color charge density? So we need a color charge ensemble, but how to specify that? Now here comes this Maclaurin Venugopalan model. In MP model, uh, they argued that this with reasonable assumptions, the ensemble can be taken simply as Gaussian, and the only surviving correlators that we can actually construct with this rho is the 2-point correlators, because it is Gaussian, and all the higher order correlators would be simply 0. The justification of this model is that in a highly Lorentz contracted nucleus, there is a large density of color charge at each and every impact parameter, and the charges from different nucleons are uncorrelated. Um, that's why from central limit theorem, resulting distribution should be approximately Gaussian for large nucleus, and the locality of the correlations is also a consequence of the fact that the charges from different nucleus, they are not correlated. So that was the very first step towards building a field theory simply from the color charge density and color charge current. Uh, okay, so how to evaluate a typical observable in color glass condensate? This in this framework. For that, generally, for these two colliding nucleus, what they do? I mean, they pick two Gaussian, for the both the both the nucleus, we have this Gaussian distribution, ensemble distribution for both the nucleus, and then we have to pick rho 1, rho 2 from the both the nucleus, put them in the Young's mean equation as a source term, numerically solve the equation, and then once we solve the equation from the solution in the form of the field, uh, we can get the spectrum directly from the field, and then again repeat the steps for a Monte Carlo average. So that's the basic sketch of this framework. Okay, so what is beyond this model, McLaren-Venn-Gopalan model? This justification of treating the constituents of this target as static color source. So in this model, we just have color source, and this justification is Lorentz time dilation. Now this is not the complete story, because there could be gluons that are that are relatively slow, of smaller momentum, and they can't we can't treat them as just a static color source. They should be treated just as a dynamical source. So here comes this separation of a scale. So we can actually introduce some kind of separation of a scale, lambda plus, in the theory, where the momentum that is greater than lambda plus can be actually treated just like before as a static color source, but the momentum that is partons with momentum, longitudinal momentum that is less than that separation scale are the standard quantum fields. And this cutoff basically separates the fast and slow moving particles. It basically separating the degrees of freedom, and because this is a arbitrarily introduced separation scale, so we can actually always try to derive some kind of RG equation, and this RG equation is the Zimok equation. Uh, so
Actually,
yeah,
Rakim,
yeah.
one quick question. If it's technical, we can do it later. Is this separation gauge invariant, or is this that specific gauge that you mentioned before?
No. It has nothing to do with that Lorentz gauge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So, yeah.
Rishi, I had a hand raised.
But I can't see it.
I missed it. Sorry,
ask?
I should have seen it. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I had a simple question. So from what you said, the number of nucleons will come just as an overall multiplicative factors A. Is that correct in this formalism? You said different nuclei, there is no correlation, and you just add the contribution from two nuclei.
Okay, so all the patterns are lying over this light cone. And
how does the number of nucleons enter the formalism?
So number of nucleons is an parameter, and it is an overall factor.
It's just an overall multiplicative factor Z.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So this is the equation that is been unless we move to this Zimok equation, so far the things are classical, because Young's-Mill equation, the solution of Young's-Mill equation gives the classical field, and this Zimok equation that tells how the physics would evolve as we change the separation scale, and this separation scale is longitudinal separation scale. So basically we can readily translate it to the Bjorken X. So basically this equation is essentially the X evolution equation, but this is for the ensemble that we thought. So initially it is Gaussian, but the moment start evolving in X, that shape of the Gaussian got distorted. So that's the idea. But the important point is this, and of course this is an integral differential equation. It requires some kind of initial conditions, and this MB model usually taken as an initial condition for this to solve this RG equation. But there are actually important.
Just when Ashmita has a question.
Mhm.
Hi, Raktim. So I just wanted to clarify. So in this equation and so far in your framework, you are consistently using the Lorentz gauge. Is that right?
No, that was Lorentz gauge was for the MB model, and it is not that this particular mod. I mean, in the Lorentz gauge, things are analytically solvable. That's the only thing.
So you are actually using Lorentz gauge in your calculation.
No, I am not. I haven't shown my calculation. These are some
okay.
well-established thing. I'm just.
That is, of course, these are established things. I am just asking whether in these things that you are showing this equation X evolution, whether Lorentz gauge is being used or not.
No,
no.
It's a general equation.
Okay, thank you.
And moreover, this W is not necessarily ensemble. Any gauge invariant Wilson line correlators can be evolved with this equation. Yeah. So the other important features of this equation is that it once we move from the initial condition, gradually it forget the actual initial condition, and it gives some kind of emerging scale, and that scale is saturation scale. So beyond saturation scales, things are non-linear, and as we are far from the saturation, things can be approximated as stochastic scattering kind of. So that's all. The other point in this particular talk is the thing that I wanted to mention is that this is the equation that can evolve a class of operators. Mostly those operators are Wilson line operators, or the Wilson line correlators, or their derivatives. Like okay, so any observable that is been constructed from the Wilson lines series, I mean a chain of Wilson lines, that can be evolved with this equation. So for example, if we take a very simplistic one, like say 2-point function, 2 Wilson line, what we call the color dipole, then the Zimok equation correspond to the Belatsky-Kovzhikov equation. Even though the original Belatsky-Kovzhikov equation are derived from the other way, but this is the correspondence that if I take the color dipole, it would correspond to Belatsky-Kovzhikov equation. And then if it is a 4-point function, then it would give me the quadruple evolution equation.
You are saying these formalisms are all gauge invariant.
You mean Zimok evolution?
For example, these equations that are there on the screen now.
This is gauge invariant equation. Is there any reason to doubt that?
Sorry, this is gauge invariant because so this ux1 goes from -infinity to infinity, and you are assuming that the gauge fields vanish at infinity, or what is the gauge transformation of ux1?
Yeah, I mean, if I construct, then there are issues like okay. Okay, so let's hold that for some time.
Okay, yeah, sure.
All right. So that is the point, that these kind of operators can be evolved with these equations. And yeah, so here I take a pause and then move to the PDF. Now, uh, one thing that I should mention, that this small x evolution, small x wave this MV model and GMOC equation together as referred as color glass condensate, and the word color refers to the gluon colors. Origin of the word glass in the CGC comes from the fact that the glasses which also have a separation of degrees of freedom across the time scales. And the word condensate refers to the high occupation number, even though uh, this is uh, this is not truly condensate in the Bose-Einstein sense, but this is the overall short overview of CGC theory. Now let's move to TMDs. Uh, See, TMDs is the I mean many studies have been performed in the theoretical front and for PDFs, and the attempts that are mostly based on the considering that the regular PDFs, beyond regular PDFs, all the efforts are basically studying the descendants of Wigner distribution function, which is like a mother distribution. So TMD is one of them. So let me start from the operator definition of TMD. So, so they are defined as the Fourier transform of forward matrix elements of product of two gluon fields, field strength tensor at two points. Now, the gauge link between them ensure that their operator definition, operator definition of TMD distribution is gauge invariant. So this been introduced to make it gauge invariant, and this gauge links connects the field strength tensor along a definite integration path. Now, which path is to choose, that depends on the specific partonic subprocesses and color structure of the actual process in hand. Uh, so often we take this staple like gauge links, uh, what we call the future pointing gauge links or past pointing gauge links. Past pointing because it travels in the far past and then moves in the transverse direction and then again return back. And future pointing because it travels in the far future and then move in the transverse direction and then again return back. Now, unlike the collinear PDF, the TMDs are not in general universal and process dependent, and they are mostly process dependent. For two going to two partonic subprocess, we actually need eight gluon TMDs like this, and all of them are comprise of past pointing gauge links or future pointing gauge links or some Wilson loop also, appropriately positioned and chosen and based on the actual subprocess. However, in the small x limit, not all of them are unique and universal. I mean, it turns out that only the two of them are universal: Uzaskar-Williams distribution and dipole distribution. And some way or other, all other distribution can be expressed in these two distribution, in the small x limit and also in large NC limit. Okay, so how to move to the small x limit of these operators? Now that is being done by that is a two-step process. Uh, in the first step, what we do, we convert the operator definition of all TMDs that are in the field strength tensors and future pointing, past pointing gauge links to the Wilson lines and their derivatives, because the transverse derivative of Wilson lines are basically are essentially the time integral over the field tensor, field strength. So uh, this is uh, this is the relation by which we we, we transform the operator as the correlator of Wilson line and their derivatives, all the operators. And because this kind of operator that can be evolved in X using this GMOC equation, either numerically in the CGC platform. That gives a way to go to the small x limit of this TMT. So that's the idea, that uh, because GMOC equation can evolve the operator like this. First step to move to construct the operator like a correlator of Wilson lines, and then evolve that Wilson lines using GMOC like equation or getting an average through the color glass condensate. So that's the basic scheme of going to the small x limit. So here I wanted to put a comment that if the operators doesn't involve future pointing, past pointing, or gauge link, then it would be it. I don't know how to how to how to modify the operator in this form and to utilize the no.
Raktim, just one sec.
Yeah.
Ashmita has a question.
Yes, please.
Me unmute. Yeah, so Raktim, on the
Um,
left hand side, I see some FQG. It will be FGG, right? You are considering
Oh,
purely
oh, oh,
one,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay. Thank you.
typo. So that's the thing. So so for example, we are thinking of a so suppose we have a bilocal operator and we have a straight gauge link. Now here comes the problem that if I have a straight gauge link, how to modify that operator and make it like this. If we don't know that procedure, then at least I don't know how to move to the small x limit of that operator. So that's the thing. So yeah, so let's move on. So let me briefly cite some of some of the work that we have done. So you see the Uzaskar-Williams distribution contains this color quadrupole with all the derivatives and all, and also dipole distribution contains this color dipole. Uh, now these derivatives can be taken out of the integral, but essentially this is a color dipole, 2-point correlator, and the equation that governs the small x evolution of this operator is BK equation. Unfortunately, we don't have any full solution, complete solution of this equation. Only some limiting solution exists, analytical solution. So if I have some kind of solution of BK equation, then I can actually substitute though that solution here and try to perform this integral Fourier transform. But we have limiting solutions. So what we did, we take one of this limiting solution that is available analytically. They call it a Levatuchin solution, and this is a solution that is valid in the asymptotic small x limit. So we take that solution, we substitute here and perform the integral. But what was non-trivial was that the solution Levatuchin solution is not a Gaussian type or a regular function. It's a log normal function. So the structure is like this. So it is basically this is called scaling variables, and it is not a Gaussian in the scaling variable. Rather, uh, it is a Gaussian in the logarithmic of the scaling variable. So it is a log normal, and there is no standard technique to Fourier transform log normal distributions, log normal functions that two in the 2 dimension. Another important point that I should mention that unlike Gaussian, this is this is non-analytic at r equal to both r equal to r power equal to 0 and r power equal to infinity. For large separation and for a small separation, in both the case, this is valid for large separation. So for large separation, and large separation means infrared domain. So in the large separation, this becomes non-analytic. So but anyway, we have tried to get an analytical solution, analytical form of this integral, and that turns out to be a series in what we call the Bell's polynomial. I wanted to just briefly mention what is this Bell's polynomial, because I need to add some comments on that. So Bell's polynomial is something. So the point why I'm saying I'm discussing this, because the form of the solution, form of the Fourier transform that we finally got is a series in Bell's polynomial. So that's why. So Bell's polynomial appears in the study of set partition. For example, suppose we have a set, and let's consider a set of ABC, and it can be partitioned into two non-empty, non-overlapping subset in three different ways: ABC, BCA, and CAB. Now this subscript B32, that tells us that we are considering the partitioning of the set with three elements into two blocks, and there are three partitions of a set in three elements and two blocks, where each of the partition of the elements are divided into two blocks of size 1 and size 2. So basically the Bell's polynomial encodes the how we partition sets. Okay, so the another important property, analytic property of this Bell's polynomial is that it shows up when we multiply a series several times. For example, this particular series, if we multiply it for k times, then again it is a series, but that's a humongous series, and then this Bell's polynomial show up in that final series, and it also shows up in the it also shows up in when there is this series in the exponent. Okay, so the result that we got is this. After Fourier transform, this is what we got as the final solution after the Fourier transform. Now we don't know how to simplify this summation, or even we don't know if at all it is possible. But at least in the leading log approximation, this turns out to be a convenient form, and interestingly, it gives a kind of Sudakov soft factor, even though it is not the Sudakov factor or Sudakov spectrum. Because you don't have this lambda QCD, you don't have coupling here QCD coupling, but the form of the structure of this TMD at dipole TMD at a small x turns out to be having a Sudakov soft factor. The other thing that I wanted to mention, that this particular series with Bell's polynomial, it seems like it is not a converging series; it's a diverging series. That's a anticipation, and I think that this divergence of this series may have some connections with the non-analyticity of the solution that we are using, and that non-analyticity of the solution some way or other should be connected with the non-perturbative effect in the infrared domain. Okay, so let's move on. So this is what the form of the solution, and this is so it actually goes down to 0 smoothly, and that's it. So until then, the idea was the perception was that the TMD should be proportional to k power. So it should be just
Sorry,
K.
I was a little
Yeah,
lost.
yeah.
It was a series in what and non-analytic in what?
It is a series in series like this.
So this is the variable. So this whole thing is like x.
No, this is a polynomial.
I understand. And
Yeah,
when you are calling it a series in something, so this is a series in.
Bell's polynomial.
Uh-huh. So these are all polynomials. So x here is this complicated thing, log of k perpendicular square by blah blah blah. This whole thing you are calling
Yeah, so we
an
have this.
x.
Okay, so B2. So in this series we have terms like B2, B4, B5, B6, B8, and if I take only the log, leading log terms from collecting from all the terms, what we call the leading log across, then this is something that we get. But we are leaving many terms. What I am saying is that if I try to collect all the terms, it could be it shows kind of divergence. But at least when this k-part is small than quite small than qs, this is large, this is quite large, so this first term would dominate, and in that domain this should be fine.
Divergence in what regime?
No, I mean what I'm saying is this summation overall.
That's some divergence. Okay.
In totality it is divergent, but if I collect only the leading log terms, then it
Okay.
is giving me the finite term. Yeah. Okay, so that's the thing. Now with this kind of form of gluon TMD, gluon dipole distribution, if I study the contribution to this TMD from the saturation region domain, then I mean, what is the infrared renormal contribution to this particular estimation of TMD? If I try to get that, it turns out that this nonlinear saturation effects shift the first IR pole to at the Borel plane from 1 by 2 beta to 1 by beta 2. This is something that that we did in the meantime. Since I gave the talk in IIT Bombay, so that is something that it tends that the saturation effects shift the first IR pole there. So what is the consequence that we haven't started, but this is the thing that we got as far as IR renormalization, IR renormal contribution to this TMD PDF is concerned. Okay, so the other thing that we have studied with our student is a kind of solution of the Becky equation, not the full Becky equation, but a kind of linearized Becky equation. So if I drop down this term, we get an equation, and this is not a typical BFKL equation. This we can call as linearized BK equation. If I drop down this term, now at which limit I can drop this term? In the limit where s is small. Now s is small either in asymptotically small x or very high y, or when we have large separation. So in that domain, this would be fine, that we can drop this term. Once we drop this term, the solution that we get is this is Leibniz solution. We have used that before also, but with some additional modification in the cutoff and taking care of the higher order terms, what we have got is this expression that is in the form of uh, dialog function. So, and interestingly, this dialog function reproduce both Leibniz solution and Maclaurin-Venugopoulos solution in the two different domain. See, this is the structure of S that is Gaussian in a scaling variable, and it is true in this domain. And in the complete opposite domain, this is the structure of S. So deep inside saturation, when we have nonlinear contribution active, the Gaussian shape modify to log normal. So normal modifies to log normal. So that is the idea. So this function can catch up both the limit.
Just one sec. Ashmita has a question.
Mhm.
Actually, I could not remember what was tau. What is this variable tau?
So tau is a number that stems from the saturation boundary. The way we define the saturation boundary, from that definition tau stream out, it is nothing to do and with coupling. It is just a number. Typically, it is 0.2 or something.
It is a constant.
Yeah, 0.2.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing that we have done. So this is it. So this new solution is basically can extrapolate MV model that is nothing to do with small x, and this is asymptotically small x. So it can extrapolate with these two, and also this new solution quite in agreement with the numerical solution of the full BK equation. So that's the thing. Of course, we can take this solution, this new solution, to get the form of the TMD that we haven't performed yet. Okay, so this the other thing that we have done is this GMOC equation. In the very first slide, I was trying to tell you that there is this two avenue to move to the small x. One is this GMOC side, and other is this usual Muller dipole model and Balatsky hierarchy. So they are equivalent. That is there, but for the general operator like this, how a GMOC like equation, which is an operator equation, can reproduce the Balatsky hierarchy. That is something that we have done for this general 2n-tuple correlator. This may be useful for multi-particle production or something, that, but we haven't explored that yet. So this is the equation that we have uh, derived as an evolution equation for the 2n-tuple correlators. Okay, the other interesting features that we have find that in this equation, that the kernel that we are getting. So every equation they are integral differential equations, so they contain kernel, including BK equation or any higher order equations. So this kernel, the information or structure of this kernel gives many information on the about the solution of the equation. So it in this equation that we have derived, it turns out that the kernel also SL2Z invariant. So that we have checked, but what is the implication of this? How we can guess some property of the solution with these invariants, that we haven't checked. So we are working on that. Okay, so okay, so this is something I was doing few years back. So until a few years ago, there was this phenomenological efforts to extract values for the jet quenching parameter for various central heavy ion collisions, done at various energies for the prevailing energy loss models. So so we have implemented some idea of transverse deflection and etc. We tried to get the small x evolution of jet quenching parameter, and for that we use the machineries of small x. Basically, we use the BK equation to just to get the evolution for q hat, because this probability of transverse deflection, when a parton is moving in a nuclear medium, the probability of transverse deflection, that is that is related to the dipole amplitude in Muller dipole model. So from there we can construct the evolution equation for q hat, and that is what we have done. And it turns out that the q hat, the familiar parameter in Hebbian collision community, that evolves with the small x with the exponent uh, zero point 0.3 alpha s, and that is slightly less than the exponent that is been governed by the gluon distribution. So it is not moving, evolving just like gluon distribution. It is slightly, it's the evolution is slightly, uh, slightly less steeper. The other important thing is that the operator structure of q hat has pretty resemblance with the TMD PDF. Q had the operator structure again bilocal and having two field strength tensor. Uh, people tried to construct a gauge invariant definition of Q hat, and they put gauge links here and here. So, so this TMD physics and the Q hat physics are does have some connections. So, so that's all. That is all what I plan to discuss today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raktim.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are questions, please go ahead. Now the floor is open.
So I had a question. So you have considered unpolarized gluon distributions. So there are
Yes.
also linearly polarized gluon
Right.
distributions. It would be quite interesting to do your framework and study the small x limit of those linearly polarized gluon distributions.
Yes, I mean people are working on that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not following that, but people from the small x community are started working on the polarized DMD.
Yes, particular interesting thing is the linearly polarized
Linearly
gluon.
polarized. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, I had a couple of questions. So if you go to page 15.
Page 15.
Yeah. Yeah, so this went a little fast for me. I don't know this very well. So my intuitive feeling was that the way you go from like a simple distribution to the small x distribution by including nonlinear effects is you add a nonlinear term in the evolution, right? In the evolution equation. So my main question is
No.
you've
Okay.
gone
Yeah.
from F to U. Is that an assumption or
No.
is there some reasoning behind that?
It's I mean there is as such no major assumptions are there,
Hmm.
except that at one point we have neglected one x with respect to 1, so that because we are moving to a small x. Otherwise as such there is no big assumption. The motivation of constructing like this is to exploit this GMOC equation, because that would evolve operator like this.
Yeah, no. So what I can't understand is, okay, you said that in small x, the upper equation, the distribution f goes to this particular second form. Where does this come from? What is the physics behind this?
No. This is the second line is an uh, exactly same equivalent line with the above line. If I able to construct operator like this, I have the machinery or evolution equation of operator like this, and that equation can be utilized to move to the small x domain of this operator.
Hmm. Okay, I can't quite see that the
So
second line
this second
is
line
the
is not,
same as
it
the
is
first line. That is, I think, that is the main question.
okay. So here you see this is the transverse derivative of u is connected with f. So it is basically the arranging the field tensors and the gauge links, so that I should be able to organize the links and the field tensor in a way that I get this derivative terms.
I see. Okay, okay. And where does the small x assumption go in showing this
That is a
behavior?
trivial step between these two.
Okay, I
No,
see.
still this is not, this is at any x. Now,
Okay,
if I move to small x, then I can supplement the equation here,
okay, fine. I
the
see.
solution from the equation here. Yeah.
Hmm.
So this arrow is little misleading.
Yeah, that, I think that's what got me
Yeah. So
confused.
this is, and this is our equivalent. The once we have this structure, then we can move to small x through
Okay,
Gmod.
I see. Yeah, now it's a bit clearer. Uh, Actually, and one more question related to page 20.
Yes.
Uh, you said that the leading log term is convergent, but if you don't make the leading log assumption, then it's possibly divergent. I mean, can you see it like can
Yeah.
you
I
see the
mean.
first approximation
No,
to
I mean, so this is up to infinity. So
yeah
this is n equal to 0 to infinity, and
yeah
you see this factorials. So this is n factorial, and this is 2n. This is zeta function, so it is pretty much controlled, and this is 2n minus 2 factorial. So so that is what I am suspecting, that it would be diverging eventually,
Could
but
you do some sort of a simple ratio test or something to see how it goes at large
uh,
and beyond this approximation?
it clearly shows the divergence, but there
Okay,
are procedure where people know put make the diverging series convergent, like Borel resummation, when you
I
have
see.
factorial like this. Now
Hmm.
if I it is not just factorial. If it is just factorial, we can implement this Borel resummation and try to get some finite number, but it is inside function, it is inside Bell's polynomial, so that makes the things complicated, and we haven't tried that with full force. um, this is what we did, that we take the leading log. The reason for taking the leading log is that we are interested in a small x. So if this is smaller than qs, quite smaller, so this is a large number. So whenever I have logs, large logs, so I can just collect those large logs, forget about these numbers, and then that gives me this. The something that strikes me is this particular form, because it has nothing to do with the multiple emission, QCD emission, that gives the soft gluon, soft gluon emission, and eventually the Sudakov soft factor. But it's still the structure is kind of same, except this QS and tau, etc. Tau playing the role of coupling, and QS playing the role of lambda QCD. So that is it.
Sorry, Raktim, just now you said tau is a constant, right? Is it
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
No,
tau?
no, no. I'm just saying the tau here. The tau is constant, 0.2. That what I just said.
Mm,
But in the QCD, the PQCD collinear emission, where
mhm,
we derive the Sudakov factor
mhm.
from multiple scattering, and eventually we get the Sudakov factor. In that expression, in those kind of expression,
Uh,
you will see that the coupling is hanging here.
oh, okay, okay.
So that's why I'm saying this tau is kind of playing the role of the correspondence is tau with coupling.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
One question is
Sure,
due
sure.
from I think Somenda.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I think I have to return back to these things, and then I have to check. So let me make sure that what was the question once more. Shumenda is there or no?
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, no, I was asking what was the gauge transformation properties of these U's that you wrote when you first came to the gym work formalism or something? There are some correlators of products of U's, and so just by looking at that object, it was not clear that it was gauge invariant. So I was asking what was the gauge transformation
I
of
think
these?
this was the one.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. So let me check if my students is there. She is more efficient to tell you this. Khatija, would you like to comment? Anyway, so I'll return to you with more proper way. My initial remark is that this is gauge invariant, but how it is going and how it is happening, that I try to get back to you.
Okay, fine.
Raktim, it doesn't look like gauge invariant.
Yeah, that's why I'm holding for some time. I will, maybe I am wrong.
Hmm. Any other questions? Okay, if not, then just thank the speaker once again.
Thank you, sir.
Then, okay, so
Thank you, Raktim.
Thank you.